let's talk a little about. All right, so you ended the previous season with Selena finding love, getting her library, getting her legacy.
She got everything
She
wanted.
but you then decided the arc. How did you map out the arc to show her destructive behavior leading to the finale?
It was the sense that basically, even if as she made peace with her life, she made peace with no longer being president. She's a Scorpion, and the second that window even opened a half an inch, she was all the way through that window and willing to throw it all away, and that's her. And once you sort of start what was this now final season with that as an idea, if she's willing to do that, what else is she willing to do? And that was sort of the mindset.
And what about Gary? Did you always land on what Gary's fate was going to be?
Once I knew that I wanted her to do bad things, the idea of what's the worst thing she can do, I guess in sort of, if you will, screenwriting parlance, is you have to shoot Fredo. You have to kill Fredo. Because you could say she did bad things. We could have her be a bad president. Who cares? None of it's personal. If it's not going to involve one of our characters, if it's not going to involve something that the audience cares about, it's worthless. So you shoot Fredo, and that's Gary.
As we know, art imitates life, or life imitates art. Did you know that the Jonah Ryan anti-vax thing would pay off for you so much?
No. It was an attempt that honestly started, even 2 years ago, with more of a sense of, how to approach the ongoing attack on facts, attack on science, not specifically, but our way into it. We used to live in a world where an expert was an expert, and now experts are ignored at our own peril, and that was our attack on it. And obviously when we wrote it, we weren't sitting there going, oh, I hope there's a big measles outbreak. And it just, the real world ceases to surprise me.
Was there any character end that you wrestled with, like which character you wanted to resolve? Because you had the great ending for Dan Egan, a lot of great endings.
With Dan, with Reed Scott and Dan, we knew we were in a very specific ballpark, and then real estate just seemed right. But we definitely we obsessed on all of it. You got to obsess a little bit.
I did like you, Richard, the one true noble character, delivered. Ultimately, he was the embodiment of what a public servant should be.
And that was always going to be. And dare I say, in a very dark finale, it's a little bit of hope.
What was the main inspiration for doing the show, and how did that first pitch meeting go when you explained it?
Well, the inspiration was our personal lives, and I think it started because we went to a couple parties as adults and realized that we still felt like we were 13. All the insecurities, were still very present. And what was the second question? How did
that first pitch meeting go? How do they? Because it's kind of a very fascinating concept.
Yeah, it didn't go great.
The very beginning, really before pitching, of meeting with producers, and there were a lot of, how will you do that? That's illegal,
immoral.
Right, that's not going to work.
Not possible. So it pushed us to make a presentation so that we could experiment and prove it to ourselves even, does this work or not? Yeah.
Now, obviously, it's very, very funny, but you also have a lot of very serious teen issues you're talking about. How do you balance the comedic versus not trying to shortchange the emotionality of it?
I think that's been something that's been scary since the beginning, and that's part of the surprise that people, not being afraid that people might not connect with it because we're interested in doing both things. And the fact that people have has been really nice, and I think it's kind of a confirmation that some of the most tragic things there's still humor in, and that's kind of our point of view. We have a dark sense of humor.
Yeah, the things that we feel the most ashamed about elicit humor and sadness. So.
Yeah.
And how is it acting with 13-year-olds?
Great.
Really good.
Really good.
They're great. Better than us. So
yeah.
They're more open and honest in some ways because they're children, and
Yeah, and you also learn a lot by watching their behavior. It's right in front of you, so you can see how kids are, trying to cover themselves up, and they hold themselves in particular ways, and you can just copy it.
So it's kind of helping you as a writer too. Every day, going back to the writer's room. Oh my God, that's a great touch.
Yeah, and character choices, little ticks here and there, where everybody has them at that age, and we still have them as adults, but they're just really magnified at 13. So you're like, okay, we have ticks, right. That's for sure.
Well, thanks so much for stopping. Congratulations on the nom. So what was it like literally to get inside Janet's world?
Janet's world, we've been promising that we would see in what's going on in there in a way for many seasons, many episodes. We felt really grateful that we would be the writers to get to help guide what we would see in there. Yeah, I mean, I hope that the sci-fi aspect only enhances, a lot of like fun, wild character moments, and just it was fun to, see how it went.
Now for you, well, let's talk a little about, like, you also set up Chidi and Eleanor's relationship for this finale in this episode too. How was that kind of like setting up, which we know the inevitable finale of the episode turned into?
We felt really lucky to be able to have the moments that happened between Chidi and Eleanor in this episode. It was sort of a linchpin in their relationship. It's one of the first times you're getting to hear Chidi's feelings, which he's kept inside and to himself for a long time. And the moment was really fun to film, even though it starts with both of them being played by Darcy Carden, and she did an amazing job being them, and it felt really good, being there, having it turn into the actors playing those characters, and we have definitely never been part of such a complex and layered moment in TV before. So.
Final question is, what was both your reactions to when you saw the finale and Chidi and Eleanor watching their love story be told, knowing that it was about to be erased?
I mean, we were right there with them. I mean, we talk about people on the internet shipping Eleanor and Chidi. I ship them. Like, I want to see them get together. If we didn't get to be part of the show and I was just out there watching this show, I would want these two to be together. So I was heartbroken, and I knew it was coming. I'd known it was coming for months. They played the hell out of that scene, and hopefully we'll see what happens in season 4.
What did you think was their performances for that scene? How did you react to their performance?
I mean, I knew exactly what was going to happen. It still made me cry. They were fantastic, and both Will and Kristen are able to do so many things at once, and there's so many things going on in that scene. It's fantastic.
So you have the great Margaret Atwood book as your baseline, and now you have a show. How has it been now that the show is getting its footing to be able to develop the show, your characters more?
It's been terrific. I mean, we've been able to really develop and write for the characters as we've seen the actors really blossom with them. It's been really amazing being able to follow June on her journey as she's changed. When we see her at the end of season 3, and certainly even in season 2, when we see her in episode Holly, she's so different than when she was at the beginning of season 1, and that's just a journey we continue to follow her on now that we're beginning work on season 4.
What was the biggest challenge with writing that episode of Holly? Was there anything a little more tricky?
Well, Holly was really interesting because it's definitely the most dialogue light of all of our episodes. Our episodes tend to be very spare anyway, but this one, the episode aired a normal episode length, about 45 minutes. The script was only about 30 pages long. A lot of visual storytelling. We all are big fans of dialogue, but there was so much that our director and actresses were able to do with visual storytelling that we didn't need to actually fill it full of words for a change.
Sadly, art sometimes imitates life and vice versa. How do you try to keep, because a lot of people are drawing comparison Handmaid's Tale to what sometimes goes on in society today. How do you balance that where you want to incorporate that, but you also don't want it to be, take away from the story of your characters?
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely, we're not a rip from the headline show. What we really try to do is stay faithful to the world that Margaret Atwood created and follow June's story. It just so happens that some of the attitudes and policies that we're depicting are unfortunately held by people in the world today. So we end up very inadvertently being a bit of a funhouse mirror to current society.
So you just basically focus on your story and then not worry about that kind of noise.
Yeah, we just focus on the story, but we do get some of these crazy coincidences, which we promise we do not have a crystal ball. We wish that we did.
So you have a show that has a lot of fantastical elements, but also grounded in reality. How do you balance crafting that so the fantastical elements don't overshadow the emotional, but at the same time, vice versa, where you want to keep the fantastical thing because it's also very appealing?
That's a great question. I feel like well done. I feel like we were challenged by this a lot because if you get too much into the logic and the mathiness of something like this, you wind up with a very sterile story, I feel like. So at a certain point we had to just keep tying into character, and then I feel like there was a point where we decided that we were going to let it be a little more dreamy and surreal and hope that the tone and the mood would allow room to be universal and relatable and not have it be a math exercise, in the end, although I love math. But, I feel like sometimes you leave a show or a movie and you're excited by the cleverness of it, but you maybe weren't moved by the content. And we really were hoping to get the latter, to get that place where you're feeling it with your heart as much as your head.
Now, if you ever get nominated for her, how is it kind of crafting a show where there's maybe she's not alone?
Right. Well, we'll see about that. She certainly wasn't in the
Or
first.
teasing it.
Right.
We'll use the word
Right.
teasing.
Well done. Yes. Well, there are more. I only have a little sprinkling of my own ideas, and I'm hearing bits from Natasha, but there's going to be a lot to come.
And how does it feel like you and the rest of the writing staff wrote a character? Now Natasha's also nominated for you. How does it feel as a writer when your actually cast is also sharing the time with you, the spotlight and everything like that?
Right. Well, Natasha is just so. It's her story, her tone. She's so much a creator of this that it's in some ways different from other rooms where roles are more delineated, but. She's such a singular presence. I just can't think of anyone who's really comparable to her, so I couldn't be more thrilled. She's amazing.
Thanks so much. So for your episode you're nominated for, what was the challenges of keeping the story real about Fuchs and yourself, but also having the fantastical elements of the fight scene, the daughter who's kind of a cannibal?
We didn't really think about it in those terms. It was just kind of tell the story, and then you kind of, I don't know, it's like cooking or something. You get in the edit room or at every phase, you're kind of going a little bit more of this, a little bit less of this. Will that still hold, and things like that. But we didn't. I wish I had a better answer, but we didn't really think about it.
How does it feel writing? 4 of your colleagues were nominated for Emmys acting. How does it feel being the writer, creating those characters with your staff and your co-creators?
No, it feels great. But they did all the work. I mean, they're great. We can give them only so much, but they take it to another place. So I mean, they deserve all the credit.
Sarah's performance in the finale was amazing.
Oh my gosh, she's unreal. Yeah, she's unreal. Yeah, and that monologue she did in episode 7 was unreal. And everybody, Stephen Root and Anthony Kerrigan and everybody and Henry. God, yeah.
Thank you so much for talking. I appreciate it. Thank you.